Welcome to the Wisp Mama Bear Podcast, episode 36. I'm your host, Sarah Yacoub. Today's topic, Jefferson Davis Republicans. Yesterday, Boston Globe columnist and associate editor Renee Graham tweeted the following. Jefferson Davis in 1873. The South was, quote, cheated, not conquered, close quote. Ted Cruz in 2021. Trump was cheated, not conquered. Today's GOP isn't the party of Lincoln, it's the party of Jefferson Davis. Renee Graham was spot on. So who is Jefferson Davis? Jefferson Davis was the president of the Confederate States from 1861 to 1865. He operated a large cotton plantation handed to him by family and owned over 100 slaves. Historians describe him as having traits we've come to know and associate with Donald Trump. In short, Jefferson was a lousy leader, not very smart, and a sore loser. So why are we talking about Jefferson Davis and the Confederacy? Because we have an outgoing president heavily supported by Southern white supremacists and misogynist extremists in pockets throughout the country who are so fanatical that they're trying to overthrow a United States election. These fanatics are so empowered in their tantrum that they lost the election that thinly veiled and oftentimes outright threats of violence can be found all over their social media. Presenting evidence of truth is of no value, or rather is in fact counterproductive, as these fanatics are not interested in a scenario by which they are wrong. Let's stop and break that down. Would not a true patriot, someone who truly loves our country, be grateful that according to Republican and Democrats alike, election audits throughout the country repeatedly demonstrated that the United States just had one of the most secure elections in our history and that no evidence of mass-scale fraud occurred? Why are these fanatics rooting for a scenario by which local clerks across the country are corrupt and/or incompetent? Because that is what needs to have been the case for them to be right. Throwing the integrity of fellow Americans under the bus is evidently a price they're willing to pay in their desperate quest to be right. What do you suppose this display of developing country nonsense does for our standing in the world and/or the respect commanded by the United States? You guessed it, it's not good. Not only are these fanatics embarrassing our great nation, they're undermining it and our national security. So where do Wisconsin's Republican politicians stand? Well, with exception to a few, most state legislators are cowardly putting their heads in the sand. I'm not sure what is worse, gluttonous fat cats who are followers, or those who actually take a stand and lead. In any event, whatever the answer, our gluttonous fat cat politicians are not leaders. What is the benefit of publicly putting their heads in the sand? Well, it allows them to be chameleons. Should they be talking to Lincoln Republicans, Independents, or Democrats, they can wear the mask that expresses disdain and outrage. Should they be before their extremist base, privately, they can sit quietly by in the face of WP or white power hand gestures, Confederate flags, and cheer along to cries to avenge their, quote, stolen election. Side note, announcing that they're pissed that they lost, sore losers, and do not want to return to life under their rocks under an administration that won't blow dog whistles for white supremacists is not a very compelling battle cry. In fact, they sound like weak, whiny, spoiled teenagers. Instead, they hide behind claims of righteousness, narratives that make them some combination of victims and/or heroes. If you're wondering why that sounds familiar, abusers do the same thing. Someone who fits the profile of narcissistic personality disorder will never actually give you the truth about what happened. At best, you'll get a version of it with narratives by which they are the victim or the hero, never the perpetrator or a coward. How about Wisconsin's congressional Republicans? Senator Ron Johnson is continuing to compete for our country's worst senator and continues to bring national and international embarrassment to Wisconsin. Despite privately and now publicly acknowledging that Joe Biden won the presidential election fair and square, despite acknowledging the lack of evidence of mass-scale fraud, despite Joe Biden winning the popular vote by 7 million votes across the nation and earning 306 electoral college votes, clearing the 270 needed to win with ease, Ron Johnson is perpetuating baseless conspiracy theories. What about Tom Tiffany? Oh well, Traitor Toxic Tom is beating that same drum. Who cares what comes of our country or national security as long as he keeps the activists within his base, those making the most noise, happy, right? Reasonable conservatives, those who are conservative but not crazy, drown out in the process. As long as politicians can keep folks hating Democrats, regardless of whether that hate is based in lies, it works for them, and they maintain power. Both Tom Tiffany and Ron Johnson rejected any sort of relief for hardworking Americans struggling to tread water during this pandemic at the end of 2020. How are they able to screw over working families without fear of consequences come next election season? #identity politics. Again, as long as they can keep their base unified in their hatred of their fellow Americans, they can continue to hurt our country and her people and enjoy their get-out-of-jail-free card over and over and over again. Disgusted? Join the club. Congress is scheduled to certify the Electoral College vote on Wednesday, January 6, 2021. The joint session of the House of Representatives and Senate will convene at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the House chamber. Outgoing Vice President Mike Pence will preside over procedures put forth by the Electoral Count Act of 1887. As certificates for electoral votes placed on December 14th are called out loud, members of Congress will have the opportunity to object. Any objection that is in writing and shared by at least one member of both the House and the Senate will result in suspending proceedings and commencing a debate. After a debate, Congress will vote. Should the objection fail to take a majority of Congress, it will die and the electoral votes for the state at issue will be recorded. If you're thinking this is the opportunity to litigate fraud, it's not. The process is largely procedural, and the question to which we're going to hear disingenuous objections from seditious members of Congress is whether the ballots presented are in fact the ballots certified by any given state. The part that those attempting to undermine our election, democracy, and strength of our nation won't tell you is that there were processes to investigate and account for potential fraud. There were audits and mechanisms to test for the veracity and legitimacy of election outcomes. They don't want to talk about them because they were thorough and established that the United States ran a fair and secure election. They established that Joe Biden won fair and square, and that Trump's narratives are political theater that play to the activism of his fanatical base and not rooted in reality, supported by facts and/or law. I keep thinking how Republican heads would have spun up into orbit had Hillary Clinton or those supporting her pulled any fraction of that which we are seeing from Trump, his sycophant legislators, or his fanatical base. As much as I am tempted to speak or rather tweet this hypocrisy, I recognize it would be counterproductive. Why? Similar to how abusers thrive off of double standards and the twisted sense of empowerment that comes with rules not applying to them, Jefferson Davis Republicans love their proverbial special treatment, that they can be the functional equivalent of a pigeon walking and defecating all over a chessboard mid-game, and who is going to stop them? I suspect it is rooted in a sense of entitlement and insecurity, but that is a topic for another day. Remember when Republicans lost their minds that Michelle Obama wore a sleeveless dress? Remember those same Republicans celebrated Melania's outfits, including her sleeveless attire, and took no issue with her trashy softcore porn? Are they offended by the hypocrisy or double standard? No. Why? Well, for a plethora of reasons, including but not limited to what I suspect is subconsciously identifying with Melania as a white woman and enjoying that as a white woman, she, and by implication they, get special privileges not afforded to persons of color. Will Republicans ever come out and say as much? Of course not. Privilege is something that is enjoyed in silence, and gaslighting where challenged. Talk about this, and you can expect pearl clutching, along with a gasp and righteously indignant, "Are you accusing me of being racist?" Yes, I am. Episode 37 tomorrow. See you there.